Riley Curry is sitting on the bed at 2 in the morning, staring at her cell phone screen. Tears stream silently down her face. In her headphones, a voice she knows better than any other in the world. Her father's voice. But it is not the voice the world knows. It is not the confident voice from games. It is not the smiling voice from interviews. It is something completely different. It is the voice of a man breaking. God, I don't know if I can carry all of this alone anymore. Riley presses pause, hands trembling. She should not have recorded that. But now, holding that 3-minute audio in her hands, she understands something profound. Perhaps the world needs to hear this. Perhaps millions of people need to know that even the strongest have moments of weakness. But to understand how this secret recording broke the hearts of millions around the world, we need to go back 3 weeks, to a family that, in the eyes of everyone, had everything. But behind the cameras, carried an invisible weight. Steph Curry is a name that needs no introduction. NBA star, 3-time champion, MVP, the man who revolutionized basketball with impossible three-point shots, face stamped on commercials, t-shirts, murals throughout the city. But for Riley, Ryan, and Cannon, he is simply Dad, the man who makes pancakes on Sunday, who helps with homework, who dances without shame in the kitchen. And for Isha, his wife for more than a decade, he is the partner she chose to build life, alongside, to weather storms, to raise a family away from the spotlight when possible. But there is something the world rarely sees, something that even the family did not completely see, the weight that Steph carries every day. You can sense that there is a type of invisible pressure when millions of eyes watch your every move, expecting constant perfection. 3 weeks ago, on an ordinary Tuesday, the season was not going well. A shoulder injury had taken Steph out of 5 games. The team was losing. Social networks, that place where everyone has an opinion about everything, were relentless. Steph Curry is too old. He is not the same anymore. He should have retired at his peak. Comments from people who never stepped onto a professional court. But even so, each word pierced. Because Steph, like every human being, bleeds when cut. It hurts when criticized. He doubts when attacked. Riley was 12 years old. The age when you begin to see beyond the masks adults wear. The age when you realize your parents are human, not superheroes. And she was noticing something in her father that worried her. He smiled in interviews. He waved to fans. He posted happy photos on social media. But at home, when he thought no one was watching, the smile disappeared, replaced by heavy silence, by a distant gaze, by shoulders that seemed to carry the world. "Dad, are you okay?" Riley asked one of those afternoons, finding Steph alone on the porch. "Of course, Princess. I always am." The tiki answer came quickly, automatically, practiced 1,000 times, accompanied by that smile that reassured everyone. Except Riley, because she was beginning to see the difference between a real smile and a protective smile. Sometimes the strongest carry the heaviest weights in silence, because they believe that showing the weight would disappoint those who depend on them. That Tuesday night, the team lost by 20 points. Home game, arena packed. Steph played poorly. Not by normal standards, but by Steph Curry standards, it was disastrous. 7 points, 2 of 13 on three-point attempts. At the post-game press conference, he maintained his composure. He took responsibility. He promised to improve. He smiled when appropriate. But Riley, watching from home with her mother and brothers, saw something in his eyes that the camera did not capture. She saw defeat beyond the scoreboard. She saw a man questioning himself in ways that went far beyond basketball. Steph arrived home close to midnight. The house was dark, silent, everyone sleeping. Or at least, that is what he thought. He went straight to the office on the second floor. A small, cozy place where he could be just Steph, not Steph Curry. Riley had awakened to the sound of the car. Insomnia that had been catching up with her lately. Worry about her father that she could not completely name. She came down the stairs barefoot, silent as she always was. The light was on in the office. Door not completely closed. A sliver of light escaping into the dark hallway. She approached, not planning to spy, just checking if her father was okay. But then she heard something that made her heart stop. A sound that she never, in her 12 years of life, had heard coming from her father. The sound of stifled sobs. The sound of a man crying softly, trying not to make noise. It is impossible not to feel your world trembling when you discover that the hero who always seemed indestructible also breaks. Riley froze in the hallway. Part of her wanted to run back to her room. Pretend she had not seen anything. Keep the illusion that Dad was invincible. But another part, a more mature, more compassionate part, stayed, listened, witnessed something sacred happening on the other side of that half-open door. Steph's voice, low, choked, speaking with God in a conversation that clearly was not meant for anyone else to hear. God, I know I do not talk to you as much as I should. But today I need to, because I don't know if I can carry all of this alone anymore. The pressure to be an example, to be perfect, to never disappoint. Millions of people watching me, judging me, expecting me to be superhuman. A pause, difficult breathing. And the worst part? The worst is that I cannot talk about this. I cannot say that I am tired. That sometimes I just want to give up. Because I am Steph Curry, right? I am blessed. I am rich. I am famous. How can I complain? How can I say it hurts when everyone would think I am ungrateful? Riley, without completely thinking through the consequences, took her cell phone from her pocket, opened the recorder, pressed the red button, not because she wanted to expose her father, but because some deep instinct told her that those words were too important to be lost in silence. The voice continued, more broken now. How do I teach my children to be strong when I feel so weak inside? How do I look into Riley's eyes and say that everything will be okay when I do not even believe it myself? God, please, please give me strength, not to play better, not to win more, but to be the father they deserve, to be the man I know I should be. Another sob, then a long silence. What if I have failed? What if all this pressure has turned me into someone who just performs? Who just smiles for the cameras while dying inside? I do not want to be that person. I do not want my children to grow up thinking that strength is never showing pain. But how do I show it without seeming weak? Suddenly the silence was broken by another sound. A chair scraping against the floor. Footsteps toward the door. Riley barely had time to put her cell phone away when the door opened completely. Steph was there, eyes red, face wet, surprised to see his daughter in the dark hallway. Riley, how long have you been there, princess? What does it cost to be perfect for the world when you are breaking on the inside? Father and daughter looked at each other in that hallway at 12:30 in the morning on a Wednesday, a moment that neither of them planned. But that would change everything. Steph could see in her eyes that Riley had heard. He did not know how much, but he knew the mask had fallen. "Come here," he said gently, opening the office door. "I think we need to talk." Riley entered. The office smelled of old books and sandalwood incense that Isha always placed there. They sat, Steph in the big chair, Riley on the small sofa where he sometimes napped between workouts. The weight of silence was palpable, almost physical. "Dad," Riley began, voice small, "you never told me you felt this way." Steph looked at his hands, hands that launched basketballs with surgical precision, hands that today trembled slightly. "That is not something I should put on you, love. You are still a child." "I am 12 years old. I am not a child anymore." The answer came with that mixture of maturity and vulnerability that only pre-teens have. "And you always say everything is fine, always smiling. How was I supposed to know it was not true?" The truth of those words pierced Steph deeper than any social media criticism. He had spent so much time protecting his children from the pressure he carried that he had ended up teaching them that men cannot be vulnerable, that fathers cannot have fears, that strength means never breaking. "Let me tell you something, Riley." Steph leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Being Steph Curry is very different from just being Steph. When I'm home, I am your father, your mother's husband, the guy who burns pancakes and loses at video games to you and Ryan. But out there," he gestured vaguely toward the window, to the world beyond that office. "Out there, I need to be the guy who never fails, who never doubts, who smiles even when it hurts. Because millions of people pay for tickets, buy shirts, watch from home, and they did not pay to see someone human. They paid to see a hero." "But you are human, Dad." "Yes, but sometimes it feels like I do not have permission to be." Riley nervously fidgeted with her cell phone in her pocket. The recording was there. 3 minutes of her father's soul exposed. She knew she should delete it, or at least she should not have recorded in the first place. But those words seemed too important. "Dad, I did something," she confessed, unable to keep the secret. "When you were praying, I recorded." Steph's face changed, not to anger, but to something more complex. Surprise, vulnerability, maybe even fear. "You recorded? I know it was wrong. I am going to delete it right now." Riley was already opening her cell phone when Steph's hand gently held hers. "Wait, let me listen first." Riley put her cell phone between them on the sofa, pressed play, and for the first time, Steph Curry heard his own vulnerability played back to him. He heard the sobs, the doubts, the questions to God, the confession of weakness that he never allowed the world to see. When the audio ended, there were tears in both their eyes. "Is that how you feel?" Riley asked softly. "All the time?" "Not all the time, but yes, more times than I would like to admit." "Why do you never tell us? Never tell Mom? Never tell anyone?" Steph breathed deeply, organizing thoughts that he had avoided organizing for years. "Because I grew up learning that men do not cry, that fathers do not show weakness, that leaders do not doubt, and the more success I had, the more that pressure grew. How can I complain about pressure when I have everything? How can I say I am struggling when so many people depend on me? But that is not fair, Dad. You cannot be strong for everyone all the time. Sometimes showing weakness is the strongest act that exists." Steph looked at his daughter. 12 years old. So young. but already understanding things that many adults never understand. Riley, I want you to understand something very important. Something I am still learning. He took her hands. Strength is not never falling. Strength is not never feeling fear or doubt. Real strength is having the courage to be honest about your struggles. It is asking for help when you need it. It is crying when you need to cry. And vulnerability? Vulnerability is not weakness. It is one of the most courageous things someone can show. Then why do you hide it from the world? The question hung in the air. Steph did not have a good answer. Just excuses, fears, the weight of expectations that he himself had helped create. I do not know, Princess. Fear, I guess. Fear of disappointing. Fear that if people see me as I really am, they will stop admiring me. They will realize I am just a regular guy who makes some shots. Riley looked at her cell phone between them. Can I delete it if you want? I will never tell anyone. Steph took the phone, looked at the recording. 3 minutes. His soul naked. His humanity exposed. His first instinct was to delete, to erase the evidence, to return to the safety of the E-D mask. But then he looked at Riley, saw the maturity in her eyes, the compassion, the understanding, and he thought, how many other people out there are carrying weights in silence? How many other fathers are pretending strength while breaking? How many children need to see their parents being human? Do not delete it yet, he said finally. Let me think about this. Think about what? About whether maybe other people need to hear this too. Riley's eyes widened. You want to share? With the public? I do not know. Maybe. It is scary. But what if someone out there needs to know that they are not alone in the struggle, that even people who seem to have it all together sometimes feel lost? They talked until almost 2 in the morning. Father and daughter. Not as celebrity and fan, not as superhero and child, but as two humans trying to navigate a complicated world. When Riley finally went back to her room, something had changed between them. A layer of authenticity that did not exist before. In the days that followed, Steph could not stop thinking about the recording. Isha noticed the change in him. You are different, lighter somehow. He told her about the night, about the prayer, about Riley hearing, about the recording, expecting judgment. But Isha just held his face in her hands. I am proud of you, for being honest with her, for allowing yourself to be human. I am thinking about sharing on social media. Isha was quiet for a moment, considering. It is your choice, love. But remember that once it is out there forever. People will have opinions. They always do. I know, but what if it helps someone? What if it hurts you? I am already hurt, Isha, for years, carrying this alone. Maybe it is time to stop pretending. The world does not need more perfect heroes. It needs authentic humans. Over the next few days, Steph consulted people he trusted, his pastor, his therapist, whom he had started seeing secretly 6 months ago. Some close friends. They all said versions of the same thing. Only he could decide that. But it was at a family dinner that everything crystallized. They were eating pizza in the living room, something they did when they wanted a casual moment, without formality. Ryan, the middle daughter, looked at Steph thoughtfully. Dad, why are you so quiet this week? Cannon, the youngest, still too small to completely understand, added, You are sad, Daddy? Steph looked at his 3 children, Riley, who knew about the recording, Ryan and Cannon, who did not know, and he realized something profound. He wanted them to grow up in a world where men could cry, where fathers could have fear, where strength was redefined. After dinner, he called Riley to the office again. "Remember that recording?" She nodded. "I want you to post it on my social media." Riley almost dropped her cell phone. "Really? But, Dad, what if they judge you?" "They will. Some. But Riley, if I am not real with the world, how do I teach you to be real with yourself? How do I teach your siblings that it is okay to not be okay? Are you sure?" "I have never been more sure in my life." They spent the next hour writing the caption together. Father and daughter, side by side, choosing each word carefully. The result was this. "This is a prayer I made a few nights ago. My daughter recorded it without me knowing initially. When I heard it for the first time, my instinct was to delete and pretend it never happened. But then I realized something. Maybe someone out there needs to know that even famous athletes, even people who seem to have it all, also struggle, doubt, cry, and pray for strength. I spent years thinking I needed to be perfect, that showing vulnerability would be weakness. But my 12-year-old daughter taught me something. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is humanity. And we all need more humanity in this world. If you are struggling today, know that you are not alone. I struggle too. And it is okay." Riley held her cell phone, finger over the post button. The whole family was gathered now. Isha next to Steph. Ryan and Cannon not completely understanding, but feeling that it was an important moment. "Absolutely sure, Dad?" Steph looked around. At his wife, who supported him even when it was hard. At his children, who he wanted to raise with authenticity. At Riley, who had inadvertently given him the courage to be honest. "Post it." Click. Sent. During the first few seconds, nothing happened. Just a post floating in the digital ether. But then, the cell phone began to vibrate, and did not stop. The first notifications were from close friends, messages of support, hearts, but it quickly spread. Shares, retweets, more shares, like a wave growing, impossible to stop. 1 hour later, 2 million views. The comments began to flood. "I am crying. I needed to hear this. If Steph Curry can admit he struggles, then I can, too. Thank you for being real. You do not know how much this means." But there were also the other comments, the inevitable ones. "Pathetic. Real men do not cry in public. Lost my respect. That is weakness." Steph read some, tried not to let the negatives affect him, but Isha saw the tension returning. "Do not read anymore. You did what you needed to do." But then something extraordinary started to happen. Other famous athletes began to share, to comment, to open up. LeBron James. "Brother, thank you for this. We all feel this pressure. Respect." Other NBA players, soccer players, Olympic athletes, each one adding their voice. "Me too." And then it was not just athletes anymore. It was fathers, mothers, teenagers struggling, people with depression, regular people sharing their own struggles. A message arrived from a father in Ohio. "I was driving toward the bridge today, planning to end everything. I saw your prayer. I cried so hard I had to pull over. I decided to seek help. You saved my life, man. Literally." Another from a single mother. "I work 3 jobs trying to support my children. I pretend everything is fine in front of them. Your prayer made me realize it is okay to show that it is hard. that they need to see that mom is human too. A 16-year-old boy. I have been struggling with depression. Never told my father because I thought he would think I was weak. I showed him this video. We cried together. We are starting therapy next week. Thank you. You can realize that the greatest impacts are not measured in numbers, but in lives touched, in conversations started, in silences broken. In the first week, 50 million views. The media tried to make sensationalist headlines. Steph Curry in crisis? NBA star shows weakness? But the public was not buying it. The comments on the articles were unanimous. This is not weakness. This is courage. Steph was invited to interviews, all wanting to talk about the prayer. He accepted some, and for the first time in years, he spoke without filter, without mask, without performance. I am not perfect. I never was. I make mistakes. I doubt. I am afraid. I cry. And I spent my whole life thinking that admitting this would make me less. But my daughter showed me that admitting this makes me more human, and being human is what we all need permission to be. Something changed in Steph after that post. Not externally. He still played basketball, still went home, still was father and husband. But internally, there was a lightness that did not exist before. The weight of pretending had been lifted. He still had pressure, but now he did not carry it alone. And strangely, ironically, he started playing better. Because when you stop spending energy maintaining masks, there is more energy left for everything else. 3 weeks after the post, a movement had begun. Real Not Perfect was trending globally. People sharing their own vulnerabilities, their own struggles, creating spaces of authenticity that did not exist before. Celebrities from Hollywood sharing about mental health, CEOs talking about imposter syndrome, teachers admitting burnout, culture slowly changing, strength being redefined. And it all started because a 12-year-old girl followed instinct and recorded 3 minutes of truth. And because a father had the courage to let the world see that heroes are human too. During that same period, on a quiet night, Steph was again in his office, but this time he was not alone. Riley appeared at the door. "Can I come in?" "Always, princess." They sat on the same sofa where the original conversation had happened, the place where everything changed. "Do you regret it?" Riley asked. "Posting it?" Steph thought carefully. "No, not at all. The last 3 weeks have been harder in some ways. I have had to deal with criticism, judgment, people saying I am weak. But also," he showed her the cell phone full of messages, "I have also received hundreds of messages from people saying I saved their lives. Literally. People who were about to give up and chose to seek help instead. Families who started having real conversations for the first time. Fathers learning that they can cry in front of their children. You changed many lives, Dad." "We changed them, Riley. You gave me courage. Your recording. Your honesty. You reminded me that being real matters more than being perfect." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Riley asked, "Are you going to pray today?" "I always pray. Why?" "Can I pray with you?" Steph felt tears coming again, but this time they were not tears of pain. They were tears of gratitude. "I would love that." They prayed together that night, not hiding tears, not hiding doubts, not hiding humanity. And Riley did not record, because some moments are not for the world. They are just meant to be lived. 3 months later, that original post had 100 million views. It had been translated into 47 languages. Universities were using it as a case study about male vulnerability. Therapists sharing with patients, churches using it in sermons. But the real impact was not in the numbers. It was in the conversations that began, in the stigmas that started to break, in the culture that slowly began to change. And Steph? He continued being a basketball player, continued being a celebrity. But now he was also something else, a symbol that it is okay to not be okay. Proof that real strength includes vulnerability. Evidence that heroes are human too. Courage is not never having fear. It is having fear and being honest about it. In an interview months later, the interviewer asked, "Are you afraid that this vulnerability will affect your image as a strong athlete?" Steph smiled. That real smile his family knew. "I used to be. But then I realized something. If my strength depends on never showing weakness, then it is not real strength. It is just performance. And I am tired of performing. I just want to be human. And I hope that gives permission for others to be human too." And your daughter, the one who recorded the prayer? How does she feel about all of this? Riley taught me that sometimes the greatest gifts come wrapped in the most unexpected moments. She did not plan to record, did not plan to start a movement, but she followed her heart. And because of that, millions of lives were touched. I am more proud of her than of any trophy I have won. At home that night, Steph found a letter on his desk, Riley's handwriting. "Dad, thank you for teaching me that being strong means being honest, that heroes cry too, that it is okay to not be okay. When I grow up, I want to be like you. Not the Steph Curry the world sees, but the Steph I see at home, the father who has the courage to be real. I love you, Riley." Steph read and reread that letter, and he realized that was true success. Not trophies, not fame, not money, but being the kind of father who teaches his children to be authentically human. Naturally, this leads us to the only truth that really matters. The world does not need more people pretending perfection. It needs people courageous enough to be real, to show that even the strongest have weak moments, that even the most successful struggle, that even heroes need help sometimes. And when you stop spending energy maintaining masks, there is energy left for things that really matter. For being present, for being honest, for being human. Because in the end, that is what connects all of us. Not our perfection, but our shared humanity, our common fears, our similar struggles, and our collective courage to keep trying, even when it is hard. That 3-minute recording changed millions of lives, not because it showed a perfect superhero, but because it showed an authentic human, a father loving his children, a man struggling with pressure, a person asking for help. And sometimes, just sometimes, that is exactly what the world needs to see, that it is okay to not be okay. That vulnerability is courage. And that the most powerful moments are sometimes those we record when no one is looking, but that everyone needs to hear.